Your mom's name was Sarah. You used to wear newspapers in your shoes.
You're a wanted man.
I don't do that anymore.
Well, the people who think you did are coming right now. And they're not planning on taking you alive.
Hello, and welcome to Film Rant. Marvel fans rejoice! Arguably the biggest movie in Marvel's history has just been released, Captain America Civil War, directed by the Russo brothers, the same guys who brought you Winter Soldier and will be bringing you Infinity War. Now I'll state that I've not read the comic book version of Civil War, but I do know a little bit about it. From what I gather, this movie is more loosely based on the comic story rather than an all-out copy of the same arc. That said, has this movie been worth the wait? Well, I'm about to say my thoughts with a lot of spoilers, so please don't continue if you like to go on the occasional killing spree upon hearing spoilers. So normally in my reviews I'll start by talking about the characters. For this I'm only going to talk about two, as we are already very familiar with pretty much everyone in the movie. Those two are Black Panther and Spidey. So we'll start with the least exciting one, save the best for last and all that. Black Panther. Black Panther sort of comes out of nowhere. He's given a very quick setup when the UN is bombed, but then all of a sudden Black Panther comes and attacks the Winter Soldier on a rooftop, and everybody's thinking, who the fuck's this guy? Even Falcon asks the same question. Even if the audience isn't very familiar with Black Panther, it's obvious that it's that Wakanda guy from the previous UN scene. Otherwise, what was the point in focusing on him so much? It was odd seeing a character come completely out of nowhere while also being fully trained, but it's not something you can't get on board with, say Batflick. Black Panther's motives are perfectly understandable. He wants to give the Winter Soldier a good hiding because he allegedly killed his da. He seems to be a bit of a loose cannon too, not really sticking to the Avengers code and rules. Black Panther was an interesting character in the context of Civil War, but I'm not sure he'll be able to hold his own well in a solo movie. Well, we'll wait and see. Another character that comes completely out of nowhere is the long-anticipated Spider-Man. Everyone has been wondering how he'll fit into Civil War, coming off the back of the failed Sony franchise. Oh, Andrew, you beautiful man. I miss you. I just want you back for good. Actually, it's because of this guy that I fucking despise Tom Holland as Peter Parker. You know the thing where whenever you see someone younger than you describe them as looking like 12? Well, Tom Holland is the epitome of this. I knew he looked young in real life, but I also said the same thing about Andrew Garfield. When I first saw his mug, I thought he'd never pull off Spider-Man, but he won me over fast. I had hoped that Tom Holland would too, but in his first scene with Tony Stark, I was just sat thinking, nah, this isn't working. Not for me whatsoever. How is this little rat Spider-Man? However, don't write him off. He did win me over in some aspect. When we finally see Spidey in action at the airport, Tom's childish appearance actually works in his favour. Spidey takes to acting incredibly childish with his admiration of the other heroes, as well as his childish quips he makes during fights.
Could be. You have a metal arm? That is awesome, dude!
That's Spidey down to a T, so the young look definitely worked for me in that department. Actually, I think I like Tom Holland when he's in the Spider-Man suit, but I'll want to happily drown myself in a basket of horseshit whenever I see that little prepubescent mug looking at me as Peter Parker. I'm such an Andrew Garfield fanboy though, guilty as charged, so maybe that has something to do with it. As for the actual Spidey character, I like that they've went with the prosthetic webbing developed by Peter instead of the Raimi biological Spidey. I've always thought that's a better direction. As for the suits, take it or leave it really. It looks very prototypey, which I think works well for the movie, but I would like to see a serious upgrade made for the Spider-Man solo movie. But now we'll get on to the script. For the most part, I was actually very impressed with it. It started like a James Bond movie. We see a little bit of the Winter Soldier completing a mission, which then jumps into the Avengers, coming to the climax of their battle against Crossbones. Some people may argue they wasted Crossbones a little. I don't really care about him, so I was fine with how they used him, but I could see some fans of his being a little pissed. Anyway, as well as the James Bond style opening, it also had some elements of Bourne in there too, in that it is hard-hitting fight scenes, more locations than a Monopoly board, and some pretty complex and interesting politics at play. The combination of these two styles mixed with superheroes forms a great action movie. But this is a very adult Marvel movie, which you can expect as it was directed by the guys who brought you Winter Soldier, which was probably the most adult Marvel movie released before this one. As a result, it's also one of the more interesting Marvel films, even if it does go on a bit too long. Don't get me wrong, I was interested from start to finish, but I feel the plot did start to lose something about 3/4 of the way through, and some of the fight scenes could have been a little shorter, even if they were tremendous to look at. The Accords plotline was an interesting cause of conflict in that it comments on the idea of freedom and public safety. I believe in the comic the Accords force heroes to reveal our identities, so it's more a question of privacy in the comic, but in the movie it seems to be more about freedom. It's also a plotline that comments on the ideas of superheroes themselves. Yeah, they're all well and good at saving people, but how dangerous can they be? How far will they go? How much collateral damage will they cause to achieve their objective? It's the same ideas brought about in Batman v Superman, except this was done 10, 100, million, 1,000 times better. In Batman v Superman, it was solely on Superman and sort of swept under the rug after 40 minutes or so. In Civil War, it's at the forefront of the story. Which brings me to how happy I was that the reasons for the conflict in the movie were totally legit. I think in the movie the Accords plotline alone was not enough for Tony Stark to start beating the shit out of Captain America or vice versa. Yeah, they don't get on particularly well, but they know that ultimately they're on the same side. They both want to do good in the world. The guy at the centre of it all was Bucky. I love the Winter Soldier character, so I was glad to see that the Civil War storyline was all about him. Cap knows that Bucky was framed for the UN bombings and Iron Man doesn't believe him. Iron Man and co only ever fight Cap and his team to bring in Bucky. It's nothing personal or political. It was hard for me to see how the plot could have had a reason for the Avengers to turn on each other, and the Bucky story really provided that reason. The only downside to it was that the Civil War really was sort of, well, civil. It was very clear that the heroes didn't want to fight each other or even hurt each other, even though they were dropping trucks on each other. That all felt a bit uneven actually. Surely if you don't really want to hurt these people, you aren't going to drop fucking vehicles on them. But, you know, I'll let it slide. One aspect of the movie I loved was that it never let you settle on a side. When we thought it was Bucky that did it, I was very firmly Team Iron Man. Then when it's revealed that Bucky was innocent, I was Team Cap, and it stayed that way until the ending. Ah yes, the ending. Holy shit. I did not see that coming. I knew the line,
Sorry, Tony. You know I wouldn't do this if I had any other choice. But he's my friend. So was I.
was coming, but I just thought that the villain guy was going to trigger Bucky again and that would cause Iron Man to fight him. Never in a million years did I think I'd get to see a legit reason for Tony to beat 7 bells of shit out of Bucky. He straight up witnesses the guy kill his parents. Not even just kill them either. It was shocking to see him savagely kill Howard, then place his dead corpse on the seat next to his mother before he killed her. Jesus fuck, that's some truly dark shit. Brainwashed or not, it's perfectly understandable that Tony is straight up ready to kill Bucky after saying that. To add even more salt to the wound, we find out Cap knew about this. Exactly when Cap found out is unclear, but I imagine Bucky told him off camera at some point in the movie. If Cap knew for longer than that, well, that will certainly make things even more interesting. I really love this climax, and that's when I was thrown back over to Team Iron Man again, although I can see Cap's reasoning to defend Bucky. Ultimately, I'm Team Nobody. I totally understand Tony wanting to kill Bucky, but I also understand why Cap wants to protect him. He was brainwashed and, well,
He's my friend.
Another shocking moment was in the battle scene with Crossbones when Scarlet Witch accidentally caused a mini 9/11. Obviously it was nowhere near the scale of that, but the imagery was certainly there. I'm also led to believe that the Civil War in the comics has started from a 9/11-like event, so I feel this was probably a nod to that. It was great to see her and Cap react to what they had just done, accidentally killing hundreds of people. It set up the Civil War plot perfectly. It was sort of like the Bruce Wayne scene from Batman v Superman where we see him run through Metropolis as Superman is laying waste to the city. I honestly thought from the Crossbones scene that the plot was going to directly follow the comic plot, but unfortunately I was wrong. The plot seems to have been altered to more suit the budget of the film. By that I mean obviously they can't afford to get every hero they've ever had and they can't afford to introduce more heroes before they do it. Or maybe they could have if they just waited to do it for a few years, but by then Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. might not be on board. But I think they changed the plot of Civil War so that it was more geared towards a smaller group of heroes. The only heroes in Civil War are those directly involved with Bucky, with the exception of Spider-Man and Ant-Man, who seem to have just been drafted in as fan service. Everybody else had some personal allegiance to Tony or Cap, or had some reason to hunt down the Winter Soldier. I actually quite like that the plot did this. I would have liked the whole invasion of privacy storyline with the revealing identities thing, but that wouldn't really make sense with the roster we currently have. Everybody knows who Cap is, everybody knows who Iron Man is. There's only a select few people whose identities are hidden. The one issue I have with this scaled down plot is that the term Civil War is incorrectly used. Civil War in the comics is called such because all of the heroes rebel against each other and actively take sides. I'm pretty sure Tony Stark starts torturing people in the comic arc, but don't quote me on that. It's mean, it's brutal, and it's politically important within the Marvel Universe. This movie was more like Captain America Bucky battle. The politics of the Accords were pushed aside a little in favour of the Bucky plot, and with the lack of a larger hero roster, we got civil squabble instead of civil war. There wasn't really a war in this movie, it was like 2 or 3 battles and that was it. Don't get me wrong, I still like the plot and the movie overall, I just think that the use of civil war is completely misused. Following on from that, I think the final scene was very abrupt too. We found out Bucky murdered Stark's parents and then he attacks him and Cap. Cap slams his shield into Tony's arc reactor, which was pretty much imagery of Cap killing Tony as it would have pre-Iron Man 3. That was very powerful. I was left thinking, wow, there really is no bridging the gap between Tony and Steve now. But then the ending comes, which offers either no resolution or a really, really shit one. I actually can't decide which it is. Considering there seems to be no movies between now and Infinity War that may resolve Tony and Cap's differences, I can't see how the ending of Civil War is meant to patch things up. Don't get me wrong, it's not, your mum's called Martha too? Well, I guess we just became best friends. But it ain't anything great either. Basically, Civil War ends with Cap sending Tony a letter basically saying, "Soz mate, you know I'm on your side, but Bucky's a top lad." Followed by Tony just looking at the letter like, "Oh Cap, you little rascal." Cap then busts his buddies out of their cells and the movie ends. Now to me that doesn't spell a full relationship repair. I think there will need to be some conversations in Infinity War to mend that, which I could do without. I just wish they'd condensed the movie a little in the setup, which would have allowed for a smoother ending. I also think that somebody should have died in Civil War. After all, it is apparently a war. People die in the comic storyline and we're yet to see a hero die in the MCU. This was the movie where Marvel could have shown some balls and killed off one of their roster, so it was a little disappointing that we didn't get that. The movie did have some weak points. I really didn't like the main villain, Baron Zemo, played by Daniel Bruhl. I just felt like he didn't get enough screen time to fully explore his character and motivations. He basically just seemed to want revenge on those who killed his family, which were the Avengers. He also seemed to hate Hydra too, so his goal was basically death to everyone. I think the movie needed someone behind the scenes pulling the strings in order to turn the Avengers against each other, but it just needed some more focus. His resolution was a bit flat too. I just think he needed a bit more work in the writer's room. Another area of the movie that wasn't too great either was Captain America's new love interest. Peggy dies in the movie, which is a sad moment, but not one that was totally necessary. However, this is solely used to tell us that Sharon Carter, the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent that spied on Cap during Winter Soldier, is in fact Peggy's niece. She then plays a prominent role in gathering intel on the location of Bucky and she becomes a valuable asset to Cap's forces. But then when things finally get going, he just kisses her out of nowhere and sends her on her way. It was a bit of a sloppy intro to a romance arc that will no doubt continue, but to me it just seemed like Cap was trying to finally fuck Peggy via her lineage, which is a bit weird to say the least. In terms of the technical side of the film, I just want to talk about one thing, and that was the fight scenes. It was very clear that Civil War was using low frame rates when recording fight scenes to create that quick, jagged effect that you get. It makes everyone appear like they're doing things faster and harder than they actually are. It's the same technique used in the Bourne movies and other gritty action movies. I quite liked it. I thought the fight scenes in Civil War were thoroughly entertaining and hard-hitting, and it was great seeing how different heroes fared against each other. I do think that this recording style was a little too noticeable though, and it could have been a little more subtle, but that's some serious nitpicking. So overall, I'd say that Captain America Civil War is a very entertaining and thoughtful film that is only let down by its long runtime and sometimes overly saturated plot. I think the movie could have been a bit more focused in some areas to make the whole thing flow better. It could have also had the nerve to kill off one of the heroes. I really wish it had. But the fight scenes, Spidey's introduction, the Accords and the shocking twist at the end make this a Marvel movie that's definitely worth seeing. Certainly one of the best Marvel movies yet, and I'm sure many of you guys will love it. Is it the best Marvel movie yet? Well, not for me, but I could see why some people would say it is. It seems like it's absolutely nothing like the comic arc, which understandably might turn a lot of people off, as the Civil War comic book arc is arguably one of the best comic book arcs of all time. But I think Civil War's shrunken plot actually works well, even if the Civil War name doesn't really apply. If you're a fan of the MCU, definitely see this film. If you're a casual who hasn't seen everything the MCU has so far, you might get a bit lost in who's who and what's going on, but still find it enjoyable. Captain America Civil War gets 4 frames out of 5. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Film Rant.
Hey everyone.